Welcome to another episode of Blue is the New White. Today, I have the honor and the privilege of sitting down with somebody I've almost known about a year, right? Is that right?
Something like that.
Tersh Blissett. Is that how you say it? Blissett?
Hmm.
Tersh Blissett of Service Emperor, formerly Icebound. But we're going to talk all about the trades and kind of get his backstory on where he came from and what led him to what he's doing today. So, Tersh, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
What's up, man? It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the invite. So I'm in Savannah, Georgia, right outside of Savannah, Georgia. And I got into the trades in 2005-ish after being in the military. And then in 2014, I started my first business. It was an HVAC company, HVAC plumbing and electrical. That company, we grew for between 90 and 120% year over year. And I started my podcast. I have a podcast. And the listeners, I started in 2017. The listeners were asking me how I started my business. So me being a glutton for punishment, I decided to start another one. and then I took it one step farther and I purchased a company that was in shambles, bad in debt, not making money, like chucking the truck. One guy couldn't get out of the van because he had built up a clientele, a rather large clientele for one person, but they were priced all wrong. And all those clientele were used to that price and they loved that price, obviously. And so we ended up losing 90% of those customers and rebuilt the target avatar and have come out of the gutter since then. And now we've rebranded to Service Emperor because we're offering more than just air conditioning refrigeration as the trades.
Right on. So what all do you offer?
Air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, garage doors, whole home generators, fencing. Is pretty much a one-stop shop as our end goal. So we have affiliate partners for some of those trades, and then once we have the target numbers set up, once we reach those target numbers for that division, then we'll bring on people full-time in-house.
Nice.
But right now, our goal is just to get the advertising going, just so that we can make sure that I don't want to hire on a plumber or hire on a fence guy and then say, fence really isn't taking off. So see you later, dude. So that's why we've partnered with some affiliates and it's been a really great relationship, helping them grow their company at the same time as letting us know if we really want to dabble into that trade or not.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. So have you been in the field? Is that your background as a technician?
2 years I was in the field, which is weird now thinking about it. From 2005 to 2007, I was in the field. So my guys will ask me for tech support, and they've been in the field for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years. And I'm like, you realize you're calling the 2-year service tech for tech support, right? So it is one of those things where, like, I really like technology. I still learn. I'm still constantly, anytime something techie comes out, I'm learning it as far as the industry goes. But I'm not the guy that has been in the field for 15 or 20 years. So it's just, they can come to me because they know whenever I can figure things out, even if it's over the phone, I'm able to figure things out relatively easy in my mind. But, and then sometimes I'm tech support, more like moral support, because they're just frustrated and they can't figure it out and they just need somebody to listen to them vent.
I hear you, man. That's important in this industry, but I think that's really cool that you have 2 years field experience, because it's just kind of a testament to the trajectories that I talk about in the skilled trades.
Mm-hmm.
And because everyone's under the impression that this whole industry is just turn and burn, get your hands dirty, swinging hammers,
Right.
wrenches, all that.
Totally.
And so when you hear about somebody like you with your story of 2 years in the field and then going on to business ownership and
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that, it is I think that'll resonate with people.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I love the everything that you're doing. And I was interviewing somebody yesterday, and we were talking about you and everything that you have going on. And
Gonna make me blush.
we we were living back our stories because he was a basement, a waterproofing company, and we were talking about the exact scenario of, you know, we I was in school. I was told I have to go to college. You have to go to college to make anything of yourself. One of those reasons is my mom has a PhD in education. And so she's a lifelong student. Like, she's always in college. She'll die and still have college classes that she wants to finish taking. Um, and so, like, my entire life, I've heard, uh, you have to go to college to make something of yourself. You got to go to college. And they were pushing me really hard for engineering. And like, and I was very smart in school. I had the college prep and tech prep with distinction when I graduated high school. My last year of high school was nothing but college courses, but I despised college, like, just hated it. And so after getting out of the military, I really wanted to go to college because I felt like I'd let my mom down if I didn't go to college. But I talked to my dad, and he's a welder, a union welder, and he's like, go find you an electrician, find you a trade, get hooked up with an electrician. He has a buddy that's an electrician, and he's like, just do that. You'll be so much more happy. Because I was in cars too, and like, I have 12 cars now, and
Nice.
he was like, you like working with your hands, you like tinkering, like, you're gonna go crazy if you're stuck in an office all day. And I was like, Dad, you're probably right. I don't tell you that very often, but all right, you're probably right. So I have a friend of mine that is a car buddy of mine, and uh, he always had expendable funds, which I thought was like, okay, that's really cool. Like, he dropped out of high school. He At 16, he dropped out of high school, and when he did that, I was like, man, you're such a friggin' failure. Like, why'd you drop out of school, dude? Like, seriously. And then here I am, a couple years later, 4 or 5 years later. I'm like, hey man, can you get me a job? And but he was the guy that, like, anytime we hung out with doing car stuff, like tinkering on cars and stuff, he always, it was like the newest car part came out, and he was like, yeah man, I got it. Like, I got extra money for that. And you're like, how do you have extra money for that? Like, what kind of job do you have that you have that? Because you didn't go to college, you dropped out of high school. And here I am, like, we're the exact same age. I think we were both married at the time, no kids. We both had a mortgage payment. And, like, I'm like trying to figure out, like, can I budget in these car parts? And you're just, without even thinking about it, you got it all. And it's like, all right, so I got to figure that out, what's going on here. And he hooked me up with a job in an air conditioning company. And it was actually pretty funny because he hooked me up with this job, and 2 weeks later he quit. And I was like, hmm, what'd you do here now? But it was funny because, and I don't blame him for quitting, because he got a job opportunity across the river in Hilton Head, making a good amount of money. And I considered doing it, but I definitely wasn't going to jump ship 2 weeks after getting hired on into a trade that I had no experience. And this business owner took a leap of faith hiring me. And it was funny because I started out at like 750 an hour or something, $8 an hour or something crazy. And within 6 months, I was making $21 an hour, just because I had applied myself. And, like, it was just, hey, if you can reach this task, like, you can understand this task and this goal, you can go up to $16 an hour. Once you get, if you're willing to take on call, you'll make $18 an hour. And I was like, give me all of it, give me on call. Like, it was just that thing. And within 6 months, I was making $21 an hour. And then within 2 years, I was a service manager. And uh, then the numbers metrics really hit me, and I forgot how much I enjoyed the numbers. And then shortly after that, um, I became general manager of that location, and was general manager for about 5 years.
Wow. Now that's an incredible story. So clarify something for me. did you end up going to college at all, taking any classes at all, or did you go right into the trade?
After school. Well, I did. I went to college, but it was after I started my first business.
Oh, that's right.
So
That's right.
yeah, so I started my first business in 14, and I really wanted to understand better how everybody thought their thought process was. So I went to school for psychology, and
Oh,
yeah, I got a degree in industrial psychology.
very
So
cool. Okay. But
yep.
see, and that's awesome because I think we might have had this discussion when I was on your podcast, last year, but
Mm-hmm.
it it's great because you were able to decide what you wanted, you
Yes.
know, after you already knew what your path was going to be, and I think that that is a huge issue, right? Because when you
Mm-hmm.
ask an 18-year-old kid what they want to do for the rest of their life, they're, you know, I don't know, they pick from a list
Uh-huh.
half the time, but
100%. 100%.
exactly, and so, they take some time, they figure it out, they understand what they like, what they don't like,
Mm-hmm.
and then college can be used as a tool to
Yep.
advance them in the direction they want to go with the education, not necessarily even the degree, like in your
Yep.
case.
Well, the thing about it is measuring the ROI of getting that degree. And I didn't get a new job. I didn't like advance my career because I had this degree, and it's purely because I wanted to understand. Like, and I believe if you go to college to learn what you don't know, that's one thing. Like, I agree with that 100%. If you're going to college because you're told like you're supposed to go to college, and then you get there and you goof off because you have no idea what you're doing, like you said, like at 18 I had no clue. I was actually on track to go get a mechanical engineering degree, and I'm glad I didn't because I would be very unhappy doing that. But it's knowing what I knew when I was in college, it really pissed me off because they forced me to take classes that I did not need. And it was like, in my mind, all they were doing was padding their bills. Cause I'm like, why do I have to have a credit for this? Like, this is the stupidest thing in the world. And why would you make me take a gym class? You're wasting my time. I am here to learn, not to get a degree. And whenever I had that philosophy in college, it was like, I just paid $2,800 to go to a gym class when I have a gym membership and I go to the gym every day anyways. Like, seriously, why are you forcing me to do these dumb classes? And then it clicked on me. I was like, it's a business. They're for profit. Like, they're making money. They're keeping these people employed. They have to make it seem like it's a great idea for you to take these stupid classes. And I, I began to have a real distaste for college at that point. And a friend of mine was in college too, and he was like, "Man, this is awesome. I'm having fun. Like, let's drink some beer and go to class drunk." I'm like, "No, I have a job. I have people that work for me. Like, got stuff to do." So
Oh
it's
man.
it's different mindsets, and I think that I was able to appreciate it a lot more because I had the crew that was like I had experiences, and I knew exactly why I was there. It wasn't it wasn't to gain the experience. I already had the life experiences, especially with the military and that type of stuff. So I already had life experiences. I didn't need to go to college to create life experiences. I went to college to learn and to get the heck out of there. And I was learning for me personally. I was learning for the benefit of other people. So it was one of those things where you could give me a piece of paper, you could not give me a piece of paper. I don't care. You could say I have a degree, I don't have a degree. It doesn't make any difference to me. I purely just wanted to learn so that I could better lead our team. And that's the only reason why I went to college.
And that's a good reason. I mean, that's of all the
Yeah.
reasons that I hear, and that's kind of where I get into a lot of my disagreements with people, and I have to clarify, and I have to say, look, I don't have anything against
Yeah.
college in particular.
Yeah.
It's just that the way that the college degree is presented to America's youth is basically the only measure to success, right? Of
Hmm.
success, and so it takes some explaining sometimes because I
Oh
do
yeah.
catch a little bit of heat for some of the things that I say, as you could probably imagine.
Oh, I can only
Um,
imagine.
but to your point about the military too. First of all, thank you for your service.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What did you do in the military?
So I was a TAC P, And it's funny. When I joined December of 2001, so right after 9/11, and I was still in school when I joined because I didn't graduate until '02. But uh, our career field has a life expectancy of about 18 months in combat because we held the lasers for laser guided missiles. We're the ones that called in the airstrikes. We were attached to Ranger units. We're the Air Force people that were attached to Ranger units that would call in airstrikes. So if we ever went out with a Ranger battalion, you knew something bad's about to happen. Like, or you had the capabilities of A-10, like the A-10 Warthogs, the goofy looking planes. They come in really low and just tear up everything. But they are danger close. So, they're in line of sight of you, and it's not uncommon to get, your building shot or bombs dropped on you and stuff like that. That's the reason why life expectancy is not that long. So when it was time to re-enlist, they told me I had to be in for 6 years, and I was like, peace. They said,
Yeah.
stay in 6 years or get out. And I was like, later. But
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. That's
my wife's still in. She's a nurse. She's a captain in the Air Force, National Guard, and her first sergeant came to me a couple years ago. We were at a military ball, and he's like, your career field, they have a $95,000 sign-on bonus for a 2-year commitment. I was like, get away from me, devil. You are not going to tempt me with that. I was like, $95,000, that's the bonus. And I was like, oh man, I'm too old for that. My knees would break in half running around like that. So
Yeah, man, no kidding. That's interesting though. It's very interesting, and I talk a lot about that in my book, about that being one of the paths,
mhm.
to follow after high school, and actually one that I believe prepares people for the trades in particular
Oh yeah.
quite well. Just because of all the discipline involved and the character traits that it builds, are very transferable to a
Yeah.
career in the trades.
Do you have
Um,
very many military vets that apply with you or work with you?
I do. I've got a few. I've got one or two in Tucson. I've got one
Mhm.
in Houston, and I've got three, I think, here in Phoenix. And
So do you have anybody that does the HVAC trade in the military or plumbing in the military and then come on board? The reason I ask is we've had several so Savannah has Fort Stewart, which is like, I think it's the second largest army base or whatever in the country or something crazy. It's massive. It's a whole county. Um, that's the Army. We have the Air National Guard here. We have a Coast Guard base here. We have a naval base here. So we have like everything here. So when you put out an application and you say, or a job listing, and you say, we'll hire vets, and you pretty much have to because everybody here's a vet, because you just retire and stay in the area. But um, people who come in that are from the air conditioning side of things, they don't translate really well with light commercial and residential air conditioning. In what I've found, especially the Navy um, uh, people, because it's like it's all boilers
yeah,
and chillers and stuff like that, and you're like, whoa, we're gonna have to tone that way down because we're gonna work on a 2-ton heat pump here. So
yep. It's funny you mention that because now that you say it, I'm finding the correlation. We had a guy here before. I won't name names, but he was in the HVAC trade. In the military, he's no longer here.
mhm,
Um, and one of the reasons is because we weren't getting the type of work that we needed from him.
right.
So I see the correlation of what you're talking about. But to answer your question directly, the guys that I have working for me now actually are not of the HVAC trade. They do HVAC for me
Mhm, mhm.
now, but they are often um, in some sort of a mechanical field, not
Yeah, like
necessarily
helicopter
HVAC.
mechanic or
Helicopter
something. Yeah,
mechanic,
yeah, yeah.
yes, stuff like
That's
that.
the same thing that I find the most success with. Uh, Vehicle maintenance and helicopter mechanics, because they just have that mechanically inclined mindset.
Yep. Yep. And they're
Yeah,
not afraid of anything. Yeah.
exactly.
And that's,
Exactly.
and those are some good qualities to have. So, I'm curious, you said your dad was a welder,
Mhm.
growing up and your mom was, what was she?
She has a PhD in
PhD
education,
and
so she's
education,
a
right?
teacher technically, but she changed. She's the worst entrepreneur I've ever seen. As soon as she sees the next shiny object, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna teach early childhood special needs or special education. I'm gonna go to senior high school gifted AP students." Like, mom, pick somewhere. And she's like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna do the office this year." It's like, geez, mom, whatever. Like, you're worse than an entrepreneur.
Oh, that's funny. So then I'm curious what your perception of the trades were when you were in high school, with your dad being a welder and your mom, obviously being so heavy into education.
Mhm.
Where did your perception lie on the spectrum?
Oh, it was definitely negative.
Yeah.
Like and I did that, and it probably didn't have anything to do with my parents. It had to do with our school, because I got a tech prep with distinction. So I got a college prep with distinction and tech prep with distinction, dual enrollment degree from high school. And the only reason for that is I was in the ROTC because I knew I wanted to go in the Air Force, and I was in the ROTC all 4 years. I was also in automotive shop class for all 4 years, and I was in CAG or CAD, AutoCAD. I was in AutoCAD for 4 years. That one I hated, and that was going that was the path that my mom was pushing me towards because I'd made perfect scores and everything. But it was uh, every time that I'd walk past shop class, I just got this negative perception of the trades because our school could have done a better job of like really building up our trades. And since then, they have really stepped it up also because like now they're like at least statewide, maybe region wide, known for winning these competitions in the trades while in high school. And we didn't have per se a trade school because when my wife grew up in Ohio, once you got into high school, you went to, or it might be like your sophomore year of high school. I don't remember what she said, but you split off schools. So she went to a nursing school, which is their trade school. And so like your electricians, your plumbers, like if you knew that path, you were going to take that path, you would go to your trade school. And um she did that for nursing. So she knew right out of, she was going to get her nursing or her doctorate pre-med. She knew she was going that route the whole time. We didn't have that scenario at our school, and it wasn't the best trade training whenever I was there. And when I was in the automotive shop class, like my senior year, I was doing all college classes my senior year of high school, and I would have to come in at 7 o'clock in the morning because our professors would be there at 7 a.m. And I'd take from 7 to 9, like 2 classes from the college. Then I wouldn't have another class until 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd have to stay until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So my shop teacher, my automotive shop teacher, would allow me to come into class and teach the classes, and like the whole time I loved him to death. He was super organized. He was like me, like just 50 years older. And he was just like every tool had a little cutout on the tool hanging board. So you knew if a tool was missing. And like that's me to the T now. And I look back and I'm like, dang it, like you did this to me. But it's, he was perfect. Like his mentality with the trades was perfect, but he didn't express it the way that I feel like now he should have expressed it. Um, that class was a class that they just stuck everybody. That class in ROTC is like where they would stick all the misfits.
Hmm.
So you didn't
Hmm.
fit in any of the good kids classes. You got stuck in automotive shop or ROTC. And it was like, great. If I go into trades, I'm going to be stuck with a bunch of misfits. Like that's my entire life is going to
I
be
hear that
misfits.
narrative a lot.
And so it was a horrible perception. Like I knew I was like, I'm not going to be hanging around these fools all my life, and it's, so I'm like, yeah, college where I'm going. And I had every intention of enlisting in the Air Force, going there and then getting my GI Bill, going to college, becoming an officer in the Air Force and staying in the Air Force my entire career. That was when I was in high school, like that was what I was going to do. Um, and I probably would have done it had I not picked the career field that I was in. But as soon as I figured out that I had about 18 months left to live, I was like, nah, probably not the way
Y-
I'm going to do this. So,
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And it's funny you say that because even way back in the day in the 60s and the 50s, there was that course, industrial arts, that
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of old timers, in this
Mhm.
industry, and they say the same thing about the education back then. Is the industrial arts, is the courses that all of the misfits and the rejects and the rebels, they would all get
Yeah.
pushed into this course, and really they started to believe themselves that they were there because they were stupid,
Hmm.
and that they weren't, college material, or they weren't book smart, or whatever, their perception may be. But they started to develop this perception of themselves and the people around them, which obviously has
Yeah.
translated now to uh, the overall perception, I think. But
Yeah,
it's
it's and
interesting to hear.
the thing that I like to mention in that scenario is, like, I think it was Einstein, I could be wrong, but he said if you measure a fish by how well it climbs a tree, like, it's gonna fail every time. Like, you can't measure a fish by how well it climbs a tree, and that's exactly what the school system was doing.
You
I
give me
th my
goosebumps, man. I use that in my book.
Right, yeah, so I
Yeah.
love that, and the thing about this is, like, I love the career path that Julie's school did. The thing that I don't like about it is at ninth grade, I would've picked the wrong career path. Like, I would've picked the wrong school to go to. Um, so it's like, and the thing about it is like, my parents tell me, like, they all I heard it my whole life, like, you know, you'll understand these things as you grow older. Like, I don't want to understand it then. I want to understand it now. Like, why can't at ninth grade can I understand where I want to be? I still can't explain that. Like,
Yeah.
if the ninth grader told me, "Hey, how do I know what I want to do?" I was like, "Well, you're gonna have to do it to know if you don't like doing it." And it's like, well, that sucks. Like, that's not very much reassurance. Like, you just gotta try air conditioning, see if you like air conditioning. Try the military, see if you like military. What if I die trying something I hate it? And it's like, sorry about your luck, bud.
Yeah.
Like, I,
That sucks.
I
Yeah,
I
but
really
you're
like,
right. I mean, that's true, right? It's,
yeah.
you know, um,
I
kind
feel
of
like
goes
there's a
back
lot of
to.
people in college that did that. And it was like, rather than trying the cheaper route of trying the trades out, I'm going to try out the most expensive route. And I hate it.
Yeah.
And because, like, my best friend now, he has a degree in wildlife management. I think that's a technical term. The game warden. So he has a degree in being a game warden, park ranger, management stuff. Full legit 4-year degree at a not cheap school for this. He's my TM at Train. So yeah. Like, every month he's paying his student loan back, and he's like, "Man, this sucks." He's like, "I had a good time in college though." It's like,
Yep. I think the statistic is, only 27% of college graduates actually have a job that's closely related to their major. And
I
only
believe it 100%.
62% of college graduates actually have a job that requires a college degree.
100%. I mean, I agree. I'm trying to think. I had So with the other company that started in 2014, it's called TriStar, and it still runs. It pretty much runs on itself. It's pretty automated. And my office staff over there is everyone there has a degree and are completely unrelated to their role at all. Like, I have no accountants with accounting degrees because I outsource all of my accounting. Uh, yeah, they all have
Sure.
degrees in just, one has one in statistics. I guess maybe that's the closest one, being a dispatcher, but it's
I
like,
suppose I could see the correlation there,
maybe,
you know.
but you're stretching. Like,
Yeah, right. So on the topic of this and education and lessons and things like that, what do you think that the biggest lesson that the trades have taught you is?
we're not a bunch of apes swinging big old pipe wrenches at people, and you know that's the biggest thing. Like, the trade's filled with a lot of really freaking intelligent people, and, like, blow your mind intelligent people, and they may not appear on the outside like they're the smartest person in the world, but you sit down and have a conversation with them, especially in their career field, like if it's something that they have interest in, they'll blow your mind with
Mm-hmm.
the stuff. They don't have the same correlation. Like not a lot of trade people, but I'd say a lot of people that I run into, if I tell them, hey, sit down and read this piece of paper and I'm going to test you on it as soon as you finish reading it, they're going to flunk it every time. But if I tell you, hey, take apart that air handler and then your test is going to be to put it back together the right way, they'll pass it every time.
Yep.
And so it's that hands-on learning, it's that physical touch learning. If they have the audible listening, there's a lot more audible learning versus reading, the perception of just reading. And sometimes that will bite them in the butt because you have wiring schematics, you have those types of things, and they were taught these things and they just know based on their experience how they've worked. I find the super techs in the industry are the ones that will pick up that manual and read it every single time without even being told to. And so they'll pick up those little bitty tidbits of information like, oh, something's changed here. This is how you fix that. And so, that's something. And then I find that some technicians, I have a trouble saying technicians because they're experts. I call them service experts. We call them service experts in our but I just want to preface that. That's why I hesitate every time I say technician. But every time you find a technician that's kind of older or has been in the field for a little bit longer, that's really, really good, that doesn't really read this stuff, they're really perceptive when something changes. And when it does change, it's like, okay, let's take a second and let's figure out why they've done this. Like when they came out with the Hyperion cabinets in the, train line, the train air handlers, they came out with that basically plastic with spray foam insulation in it. A lot of techs were like, wait a minute, let's back up. We no longer have to have a P-trap on this unit. And then inspectors were saying you still needed a P-trap on it because it's a heat pump. And so then they were like going through and diving into like, do we need a P-trap? What happens if we put a P-trap on it? Is it going to negatively affect it? Are we going to have adverse effects and stuff like that? And so it's like, dang, dude, like you're smart. You're not just like, hey, move that rock over there and to there. Like, you want to know why it works that way. And our team is that way because I think we're 100% millennials. Yeah, we're 100% millennials, and they all have to know why. Every single one of them. They're like, okay, I'll do it, but I'm not doing it until you tell me why. I'm like, okay, well, this is the reason why. And so like I'll have conversations. Like I have one new guy that just started with me about a month ago, and he said, PO systems are stupid. Like this is so dumb. You could just put the customer's name and then put like a 4-digit number at the end. It would be so simple. I wouldn't have to call the office and get a PO and go through the whole process, and like I could save so much time and this stuff. And I was like, well, let me explain to you why the PO process is like it is. And he's like, oh, now it makes sense. And now he's just like, every time he needs a PO, it's like he calls in and religiously because he understands why
Yeah.
we have the PO process. And it attaches to every invoice. We track it. We job call stuff of it. It's like, it's not just to make your life miserable. And so like our entire team has to know the why behind everything that they do or why something changes. And sometimes whenever it's like from the factory, you can't really tell them why because you have no idea. And you're asking the same thing. You're like, I don't know how the hell they did it. I want the same answer because this is stupid. Yeah. And I'm sure there is a logical reason why they did it.
Well,
Maybe
there's a
it's
reason. Let's not jump to conclusions and call it logical, but there's a reason.
right. Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. It may be something completely ridiculous, but anyways, but that's yeah. Long story short, that's kind of what I find about people in the trades that they want to be respected too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like our country and our entire like the entire world has put a degree hanging on the wall at such a high achievement level. It's just like
Yep.
and you go and I'm guilty of saying it myself. Like I'm only an AC guy. I'm only
Mm-hmm.
I only own an air conditioning company. I only do this. And they're like, you mean you get in 120-degree attics all day, all summer long? You come down like super sweating, about to die, and you figured out something that an engineer had to have with his degree in a sterile office and air conditioned spot for him to work on it or her to work on it. But you did it out in the field where most people would die. You're not only an HVAC tech, you are a freaking HVAC tech,
Yeah.
and people are very envious of the fact that you have the mechanical aptitude to figure out a problem in extreme conditions that they can't figure out in a sterile lab, you know.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where we just honestly, as a society, have to change our mindset and value the trades again.
Absolutely. And it starts with one person at a time, and people like you and me, putting out the content that we do. You
Mhm.
know, it's funny, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to that podcast I just did with Bob Baker of Baker's
Part of
Plumbing,
it, I was
but
listening to part of it, but I haven't
yeah,
listened to the whole thing.
he was talking about how because he well, first off, he was a plumber, but his guidance counselor told him that he was too smart to be a plumber and that he was wasting his life doing it. So, um, but he does speaking engagements and things like that too. And he was telling me a story about how somebody came up to him and after one of his speaking engagements and was like, "Hey, man, good for you for being able to speak and articulate the way you do, as a plumber."
Like you're an
And Bob
idiot.
was like, "What are you talking about? Like, what do
Yeah.
you actually think of me? Please tell me what you think." And but that's the general consensus, right? Is that, people in the trades work for a living and people with a college degree think for a living.
Yep.
People don't understand what all goes into it, which is why it's so important that, we talk about what we talk about and show the other side of it, what people don't see or what they assume.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really interesting, by the way, that you have a team of 100% millennials. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
And
well, one of our attractions is we took all the seats out of our vans and put beanbags in. So,
nice, an
I'm kidding.
Xbox in the passenger seat, right?
Yeah, foosball table slides out the back, so
Oh, cool, man.
you're
And a
there
nap
taking a
pod in
break.
the back, right?
Exactly. Yeah, transit connects, but so strategically we got to fit them in there. It's kind of tight, but yeah.
That's funny. And you're absolutely right though. I like what you said about uh, explaining why, because
Mhm.
I find that a lot in my company too, is that people are more apt to do something and people are more apt to understand if you explain why. I've also found that it's a bit of a rabbit hole sometimes,
Oh gosh.
because there's just some things have so many different reasons, or a reason that stems all the way from up
Right.
here, to
Yes.
come down here, and then you're explaining
And then it's
away,
like a 4-year-old, like, but why?
yeah,
But
but why?
why?
Right, exactly.
Why? Like,
That's
and
funny.
my problem is I fall in. My wife, she's like, "All right, let's go, let's wrap it up." And like, I'm falling in this rabbit hole. I'm like, "Oh yeah, you want to know that? Well, I'll tell you." And
Yeah,
then we
yeah, yeah.
get,
Me
let's
too.
explore this rabbit hole.
I know. Please keep asking questions. I'll keep
Yeah.
giving you answers. Um, so what do you think is you told me kind of what the biggest lesson is in the trades, but what do you think the coolest part about the trades are? And you don't have to speak to, all trades, but let's just say
Yeah.
your specific trades, the coolest part, the selling point to a millennial or even a
Mhm.
Generation Z, about what we do.
Legitimately, you can go anywhere in the world and get a job.
Yeah.
If you want to say you live in Savannah, Georgia, I'm really good at air conditioning. Now, granted, it's not the exact same way, but you're like, hey, I got some family out in Phoenix. I'm single, have no kids. Like, I think I'd like to go to Phoenix, maybe even just for the summer. You reach out. Now we have the internet. Reach out to a company in Phoenix, and you're
Yeah.
like,
Reach out to me.
hey, yeah, exactly. Hey, Josh, you think I get a summer job? Like, I have 3 years experience here in Savannah. You're not going to have the same failures. I think y'all have a lot more like motor failures. We have evap coils that fail every 4 years because it's just soaking wet all the
Yeah.
time. And so they leak constantly. Everything's rusted. And so, but other than that, like you could literally go over there and say, hey, I'm going to make money over here in Phoenix. And you know what? I like it in Phoenix. I'm not coming back, or you know what? I'm going to try Seattle next. And then you get somebody that has a resume, you show them your resume 4 or 5 years later and you're like, what? Did you hop on trains? Like, what's going on? You're like, no, I just wanted to travel the country. And legitimately, my career field, I can travel the country, and get a really good job, especially with when I started in 2005, we were like pigeon carrier. Like it was like that's how we communicated with each other. Just strapped up into a pigeon and send it back to the office. But now it's legitimate. Like the internet's there. The technology's there. You can literally find a job anywhere in the world, and it's not something where like obviously you don't want to jump jobs every 6 months, in the same area. But if I seen somebody with a resume and they were all over the country and they told me like legitimately I wanted to travel the country and this career field allowed me to do that, like heck yeah, man. Let's bring on the experiences that you've learned. And that person can even share like, hey, this really worked well for this company. Granted, they were on the other side of the country. Maybe that's the reason why it worked well, but you know, maybe give it a shot. And so you learn from their experiences also.
Yeah, that's a huge selling point, I think. And actually, I've got a good friend of mine who was a mechanic for the mines, so he would work on these big mining trucks, big as your house.
Oh yeah.
And he had always wanted to live in Alaska, and his company approached him and said, "Hey, we got a job opening
Yeah.
in Alaska. Do you want it?" So
There
he
you
got
go.
to move to Alaska, which you couldn't pay me enough to move to Alaska. I'm a
Heck
warm weather
no.
guy,
Me
but
too.
I mean, I was just blown away because not only did he get to move to Alaska, he got a substantial raise, like an 80% increase or something like that.
That's
I
crazy.
mean, it was unbelievable, what it afforded him the opportunity to do. And that story you hear time and time again because the
Hmm.
trades are just in such demand almost
Hmm.
anywhere. You know how to do something with your hands, you've got a job for life. Doesn't matter where you
Yeah,
are.
absolutely. Yeah, you're not relying on the technology to do the job for you. Like we have a lot of technology built into our industry, um, but it's mainly like the automation, the office side of stuff is where the technology lies.
Yeah.
We do have like Bluetooth tools and all that fancy gadgets and stuff too. But if you understand subcool and superheat in the air conditioning industry, and you understand how refrigerants work and like what does work and doesn't work, a TXV and a cap tube, like you understand the concept, you legitimately can go anywhere and do it. And the same way with plumbing, you understand the industry, electrical, understand it. The voltages may be different in Europe, but you get the concept, and it's very simple to transition.
Yep, everything's a flow, man. That's what I
Hmm.
always say. Airflow, electrical flow, gas flow, it all just flows. If you understand that,
Yep.
everything else you can figure out.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this, because I talk a lot about how the trades enable people to live their definition of success, right? And not everybody has the same definition,
Nope.
so it enables that. So I'm curious what your grand vision or idea of success is, and how the trades are helping you live it.
Um, to define success, it's $1 million question. I'm already successful in what we do, and I have 4 kids. They all play travel soccer. My youngest daughter dances. Um, my wife she's a nurse, but at the same time, she's stepping away from nursing to uh, be part of my future. And when I say my future, I would normally would say be part of our air conditioning company or whatever. But we are building the air conditioning company to run fully on its own. $10 million automated. Just like the other company is. But our end goal is to travel around and educate business owners. And success is not having to stress about money, not having to stress about work, that type of stuff. So we're already there. Um, I could say $1 million in a checking account, but then as soon as I got $1 million in checking account, it'd be like maybe it's 1.2 million.
Yeah, right, 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 right.
And so because I always move, like that needle always moves for me. I am a wartime leader, like Gary Vee says. Is as soon as something runs smoothly, it's like, "Ooh, this is boring."
Yep,
Next.
yep,
And
yep.
so and that's the whole reason, like, not the whole reason, that's a large reason why I started the second company. And they're direct competitors with each other. And people are like, what? Like, yeah, we do market research off of each other. Like, let's see if it works here and doesn't work here. And It's because I have that glutton for punishment. I'm a wartime leader, and if it's running too smoothly, I'm probably going to throw a wrench in there, or I'm going to like add something to the mix to like tear it up. And like our entire team knows that. So whenever we're doing the hiring process, it's like if you the only constant in our company is change.
I love that.
And so if you are opposed to that, fire yourself now because you're really going to hate this. And I've had people that are say, they needed a job. They were like, yeah, no, I can do that. I can deal with that. 6 months later, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to blow my brains out. This is really killing me. Like, just pick something and go there. I was like, well, if it works, we'll stay in that area. But if it doesn't, then we're changing. We're not going to keep doing it just because we put forth the effort and doing it and creating that process. And it sucks because you might spend a month creating a process and procedure, and you've laid out videos, and you're like, oh yeah, this is going to work great. And then you do it, and it's like, yeah, or it's just like, like
Yep.
not going up.
Yep.
And you're like, nope, X-nay it. And they're like, but all that effort we put into it. Yeah, well, you know what? We know how not to do it next time
Yeah, exactly.
because we put forth all of our effort. And if you didn't put forth all your effort, then the next time that situation arises or something similar to it, you're like, maybe we didn't put forth 100% effort. Let's try it again. Well, no, now we know we put forth 100% effort. So now we know it won't work. Or if we do it the exact same way, it will not work. And so, yeah, that's us. We just change all the time, and I can't find a scenario where I would say, yeah, it's time to put things on cruise control. I just
No.
like I want a mountain house, but as soon as I'm in the mountain for a few months, I'm like,
Beach house.
beach house, yeah. Or and I'm there for a week, and I'm like, I hate the beach. Let's go to whatever,
Yeah.
and that's just my mentality, and that's probably not normal, but that's just how I am.
You know what? I think it's funny because I don't think it is normal, but I think it's normal for certain people because I'm literally the exact same way.
Oh,
You know, it's
really?
funny. I was, because uh, I like to look at trends. I'm a data guy, so I like to look at trends, and I every time I've looked at the trends of Windy City equipment here and what I do, it's, we grow, we grow, we grow, and then there's, 1 year every like 3 years that's like a level off,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when things start to go on cruise control, and then you see right after that just shoots right up because I can't handle it.
Mm-mm.
I have to find a way to either expand
Mm-hmm.
or implement a new technology. I mean, we fixed hot side equipment, and then we had to get a building, big warehouse, so we could store all this stuff. Boom, we did that, and then after that, it was okay. Well, we only do hot side equipment. What if we did refrigeration and HVAC? Boom, we did that, and then a couple years later, it was, well, this software that we're using is pretty good. Why don't we switch it up and get something a
Yeah,
lot more powerful?
this is going great. Let's switch it up.
Yeah, exactly. And but that's true because on added to that, like the change, I'm always looking for something better, even if it is like, say it's going like this, right?
Mhm.
And in my mind, a lot of times I want it to do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, even if something is working, I try to find ways to improve it. So but I think that's a testament to the mindset,
Hmm.
that we're in, because I think that probably stems a lot from the trades in general. We're always fixing something, and
That's a
even in
great
this
point.
position,
Yeah,
we're
that's
always
such a
fixing.
great point. Yeah, and you have to be careful as a business owner and a manager not to be the firefighter, but at the same time, uh, once things are running so smooth, you're like, oh, I need a fire to put out. Like,
Yeah,
let's fix something here. Like, I
right.
got to tinker with something here.
Yeah, there's got to be a small brush fire somewhere that we can
Right.
extinguish.
Right.
And
And you mentioned the CRMs. So it was like we are on Service Titan. Love Service Titan to death. I know Service Titan like the back of my hand. Like we maintain a score like in the 90s. Are you familiar with Service Titan?
no, actually,
So
stay on a little bit after we stop recording. I want to ask you a couple questions about that.
okay, cool. So Service Titan is really big in our trade and our in residential service stuff. They're not the best for new construction, and we don't do new construction. But that's kind of like their niche. And they started I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and like we are really good with service titan, really good service, smooth running like Cadillac. So I'm like, hey, let's try something different. And I met this group, and they have a startup company, a startup CRM company called Thermogrid, and I'm like, let's try this one out. I was looking at it, and it has heat load calculation built into it, so my techs can do heat load calcs in the invoice while on site, and really fast too. So they're like, oh yeah, that's the wrong size equipment for this house anyways, blah blah blah. And so I'm like, and this is like a 6 month long process, and we are really good at, when I say we're really good at, like, we're Titan torch bearers. So like when other people have questions about service Titan, they call us, and so we kind of walk them through. I can walk them through like remotely, and we're like, yeah, let's change up, let's go to a different brand that we have no idea about, and they're new to the industry, so they're going to have bugs that have to be worked out. And so it's it I hope it takes us to the next level, but we'll see. And it's one of those things where it was running too smooth in this department, and I found a need for our industry too, because service Titan's extremely expensive. It's very good, but they get the stigma of being expensive product. Um, but I preface that with, they're very good. Like, they have a lot of features on their system, whereas Thermogrid's very cheap, and they have a lot of features. But like, I want to figure out if those features are going to break, and so it's like, this real time check this thing out, and uh, see what it's all cracked up to be. And it's just like exciting at the same time. It's like, should I be doing this going into the summer? Like,
Yeah, right, right.
test this out in the
In May.
summer. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
Oh, that's funny, and that's awesome. I mean, your passion for what you do, comes out in how you talk about it. And in
mhm.
case you didn't know that, which I'm sure you probably do because you
Yeah.
listen to yourself talk a lot, I'm sure,
Oh
on
yeah.
your podcast and stuff. But
Oh yeah.
it's very evident. And to your point about change too, it's funny you mentioned that that's what you bring up to your new hires, because I actually have that on the job description. The very last line says job duties to evolve with position, because I got
Exactly.
tired of people, saying, "Oh, that's not my job," or "Oh, that wasn't in the job description when I signed up." Like,
That's a fireable offense. Oof.
yeah,
I
right.
hear that. It's like, that's not my job, but ooh.
Oh, I know. Believe me, that's like the first red flag, and it's a big one.
A
So,
huge one.
you know, but cool. So, not to take up too much of your time, I got one more question for you before
Yeah.
you let
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
know, how they can find you. But
Oh, absolutely.
if you could say one thing to our listeners about choosing a career in the trades, like say you were talking to a high school student, you could say one thing to them about choosing a career in the trades, what would that be?
Oh man, try an internship. Like, do an internship, and during the summer, like when you're in high school, you could go work at Walmart, make 7.15 an hour or whatever it is. That's what it was when I was in school. It's probably like $75 an hour now. Who knows? But it's it, you can go do that, or you could go and try it out. And that's something I regretted not doing in high school. Is I had some friends of mine, because my dad, like I said, my dad had a friend who was an electrician, and I had other friends at school who would go work with that electrician over the summer, pulling wires, drilling holes. And it was really cool thinking back. Like, at the time, I was like, whatever. I'm going to college. I don't really care about all that stuff. But looking back, like, his name's Witt, and Witt has just really developed. Like, because he eventually transitioned into air conditioning. But when he did get into air conditioning, there were a lot of concepts he already understood from doing the internships over the summer. And I think that those are valuable, even if you do go into a college, like, even if you do say, okay, this really wasn't for me, but there's no doubt anymore because you've tried it. And when I say internship, most of the times you're going to make money, doing internships. But there are times, like, if it was me, I would chase a mentor, and I would say, look, I will do this for free. Teach me the ropes, like
Yep.
legit ropes, and spend that summer not making money, and be that business owner's right hand man, right hand woman. Like, legitimately be a true intern, and like shadow that person as a mentor. you never know. You could end up in a relationship where a mentor mentee relationship the rest of your life with someone who's an extremely smart person. Um, and it all started because you offered to help serve them at no cost. Most of the time, I'm not saying every time, but most of the time, they're going to still give you something in return. They're going to give you some sort of pay. But I would approach the situation even as a non-paid intern, just mentor, like, please mentor me. And that's a whole nother relation. That's a whole nother conversation, just like how to get a mentor and the proper way to do that and everything. But it's a lost art, and it's also a very valuable because there's so many old timers they're like dying off, and our trade's getting very old. And there's a lot of people who are filled with some crazy awesome knowledge that have no mentee that they can mentor, and nobody's shown interest in it, but they would love to just vomit the mouth, like diarrhea of the mouth, like straight
Yep.
share everything with you, but nobody's shown interest in it. And
And
don't
that's
be
$1 million
intimidated.
diarrhea. I mean, that's
Millions of dollars,
yeah.
Especially if you can take and turn it and put a little twist on it and bring it up to date with technology.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we've done, and that's our goal.
Very cool. So, Tersh, where can people find you?
Service Business Mastery Podcast is my podcast, and we try to release every week, but right now we have a massive backlog. So we're releasing like 4 a week. We have 47 episodes that have been recorded and edited that have not been released yet. And so I try to release every Wednesday, but here lately I've been releasing every day. And and we're booked out until May. Yeah, the end of May for interviews, three interviews a day, or 4 interviews a day every Wednesday. So it's kind of taken off, and we're at episode like 437 ish.
Dude, that's awesome.
And so but it's all like, very rarely do I talk to anybody that's in the trade. I wish that I did that more. I wish that I had like more contacts. Well, not more contacts, but I just wish that I reached out to more people in the trades. And I may do that for season 5. I don't know, but a lot of the people that are on the podcast are definitely going to be people that you've never heard of before, but are so freaking brilliant. And they're like, it's just like golden nugget here, golden nugget there. You're like, they're from a completely different industry, because it's service business mastery. It's not HVAC business mastery.
Mm-hmm.
I try to get people like landscapers, roofers, like anything service industry. That's what I really want involved. So we have marketing companies for roofers, marketing companies for medical facilities. Like, just, we have a lot of marketing, a lot of CRMs, a lot of marketing, because that's what people always ask me for.
Yeah.
And then lawyers, lots of lawyers. So
Nice.
It's just like, our goal is to answer the unasked questions. Most business owners are really freaking good technicians that just like, hey, you know what? I'm a good technician, and my boss charges $95 an hour. I get paid $20 an hour. I'm going to go into business and I'm going to charge $80 an hour, and I'm going to make bank. And so you're like, no, you're not. Because if you're charging $80 an hour, you're going to fail. And they're like, you got to understand overhead expenses. And
and your $20 an hour becomes $4 an hour if you're not careful.
Or you're paying clients to go work on their stuff. And like, I've done that. So I can say with experience, like, yes, don't do this, do that. And so, and I'm not a coach, but I bring a lot of coaches on. I bring experts on. So sometimes people ask me like, how much you charge to coach? I was like, you don't want to take my advice. You take the advice of the experts that come on the podcast.
That's awesome. So Service Business Mastery Podcast. Very cool. And that's on iTunes, Spotify, everywhere.
Yep. Anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And I have had a YouTube channel since 2017 when I started the podcast, but I never uploaded anything. But I have hundreds of episodes of interviews that I'm gonna start uploading them. So they'll be there too on YouTube.
People like to watch this stuff, especially when they got a studio as cool as yours, you know.
Right.
So
Well, this is kind of new. So for a while it was all white. So it's probably like glare. And then my bald head, I wouldn't wear a hat. So I have a light on. It's like glare. And so,
no, I like what you got going on there. Well,
yeah, I appreciate
Tersh,
it, bud.
it was a pleasure having you on the show. I really appreciate your time, and stick
Absolutely.
around after we stop so we can have a little
Yeah,
chat.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on, and it's an honor. And really, what you're doing with the industry, I try and tag you a lot on Facebook. You might not be able to see it because Facebook's goofy algorithm, but people ask all the time. Like there was a lady the other day. She was like, "My son wants to be an electrician. I don't know where to send him." I was like, "Buy this book, read it." And so it's one of those things where it's what you're doing is a huge value to our industry, and I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate you saying that. Thank
Hmm.
you. So thanks for hopping on today, Tersh, and until next time.
See ya.